Welcome everybody to another Bass Adventures. I'm sorry for the first few minutes. I recorded the gameplay but I didn't check it for the first few bosses. Seems like I forgot to capture the audio. This does give me an excuse to ramble for a few minutes. So the video title will be something like Elden Ring No Brain Run. What I did was make some easy loops using auto hotkey, which mindlessly presses buttons in a certain order. So no logic like if the enemy does a big attack, try to dodge it, or if I'm on the ground, dodge to get up quickly, or something like don't heal when I'm out of potions. All of those logic things are not included. It's really mindlessly pressing buttons in a certain order. What I try to show with this video is that if you go out of your way to get a good build, then you can go through Elden Ring without even thinking about it. I didn't use any summons for this run, so it could have been even easier. And I also tried to do very little cheeses. So I did use Comet Azure a few times, which is kind of cheesing. But what I mean is that I didn't kill any bosses outside of the boss arena, or sneak up on them and use Poison Mist, or push enemies off the ledge to their death. Nothing like that. So for most bosses I used defense, because if you can survive the boss fight and do a little damage, then you can win. But you cannot deal any damage once you're dead. So for some bosses, offense was a better strategy. So kill them, preferably before they do any damage to you. So, for instance, in this fight against Margit, what I did is use the Ash of War Endure, charge up a heavy attack, and then after 3 or 6 times I use Endure and Heal. And if the cycle repeats for 9 times, I use Endure, Heal and Mana, and then I of course reset the loop. I show this only here and not in the entire video. So this is the perfect example of an easy loop. I try to do wild strikes for 3 seconds and then I try to heal. But as you can see, I'm getting knocked down a lot. So sometimes you'll see me heal, get knocked down, heal, get knocked down, heal, get knocked down. Or do wild strikes, get knocked down, do wild strikes, get knocked down, and do wild strikes. So it all depends on what the enemy does, but I'm not looking at the enemy. I've made a script in auto hotkey so that I cannot react to anything that the boss does. That's what this run is all about. So I've removed any form of thinking, just do wild strikes for 3 seconds, heal for 3 seconds. And I'm walking forward, of course, during it. Else I wouldn't be able to reach the boss. So in the top of the screen there will be a green triangle once the script is running, and sometimes there will be a red square indicating that the script is not running. The script can be not running, for example, during an opening of a boss fight when I need to run towards the boss and then I press play. Or sometimes during a phase transition, once the boss has done something, then transitions, then I might heal and then start the script again. So once the script is running, I still do an input sometimes. Mainly for moving the mouse to target the enemy and pressing Q to target again. This is necessary during a phase transition, or in this case just after a grab. I get very unlucky in this fight where I get grabbed a few times in a row. So I just want to show that. So the targeting of the boss is not built in the script or anything, it's a manual input that I do, so just be aware. I've rambled on for a few minutes now, so hopefully I explained a little bit what the video is all about. Please enjoy, and if anything interesting happens on screen where I think I should explain a thing or two, then I'll come back. Please enjoy. That was a nice bleed proc at the end of the Godrick fight. So here I'm going to fight Leonine Misbegotten. And I'm doing that because I want the sword that he drops, which is the Grafted Blade. On that blade is an Endure effect, only slightly better because it gives +5 in every stat for I think 30 seconds. What Endure does is give you 45% damage reduction, and you cannot be staggered as easily. Both are only active for 3 seconds, that's why I'm using it so often. So you'll see me using the Endure a lot this run. And I'm also using it right before a heal, because if you get knocked down, you cannot heal, of course. So like I said earlier in the video, sometimes I'll move the mouse to move the camera and then press Q to target the enemy. In this case there are 2 enemies, so I need a way to target, so it's not all loops, but it's only moving the camera and targeting the boss. So the script for this fight is kind of complicating, a little bit more complicating than I would like, but hey, if it works, it works. So everybody who watched a few videos on Elden Ring probably knows that the Godskin enemies are pretty susceptible to sleep. I really wanted to kill this guy kind of early, so that I can get to the Somber 7 in this area, and with that upgrade my Grafted Blade all the way to +9. So the first part of this fight is done manually, so without a script, because it's pretty random which child you need to hit to get the boss down. After the phase transition, the boss will always do Comatesur, and if you hit her fast enough, while she's still charging the Comatesur, you can hit her without staggering her, and that makes for a nice opening for some extra damage.
Little Rani, my dear daughter.
The script was good enough for Rennala, so let's see if it's good enough for Loretta. Okay, maybe this is not the most efficient way to kill her, but it does the job. I don't think Assassin's Gambit is necessary to sneak up on O'Neill, but I still did it just to be safe. Even though I was out of mana and was trying to do Endure but nothing happened, still worked. Nice, first try. The sleep pot totally missed that guy, but with a little bit of luck, we pulled through. This kill could have gone so much more efficient, but I was just trying to see what works, and it already worked. So this guy has quite some health, and I will run out of mana if I keep using Endure and don't drink a mana flask. So in this script I switch between healing potion and mana flask, and it's quite efficient this way. You'll see a similar script quite a lot of times in this run. this fight really went from terrible to great. Luckily I'm pretty much unkillable in this build. So I finally figured out that if you do a charged heavy attack, that you get interrupted way too easily. This has the downside that you don't stagger bosses as much, but at least you hit them, so that's a good one. So, as you might have noticed, we're doing some bosses which are necessary for a good Comet Azure build. Comet Azure is a very powerful spell, but it also costs a lot of mana, and this guy gives a crack tier which reduces all mana cost for a few seconds. So I've noticed these guys miss you a lot if you just walk forward. If you walk forward while blocking, then even if they hit you, it doesn't matter. So Mohg is one of those bosses which is very easily killed with Comet Azure. But I just want to see how good the Endure and Heavy Attack script was. So a script using a melee build is, I think, not the way to go because of his long range, his heavy hits and his blood builder. And that's why we're coming here to finish off the Comet Azure build with Terra Magica, which is something you put on the ground and it boosts your magic attack. So I've respecced into Intellect for the Comet Azure build, and the script does all the buffs and the drinking of mana and the physic and shooting the Comet Azure. So for me it's just one button press and bosses suddenly die. Comet Azure is very effective against the avatars, which are the bosses which look like trees. Now that we're spec'd into intellect, let's just kill all the bosses which I know of, which we can do now, using Comatazur. I was a little bit fearful that Comatazur would not reach Nile from this distance, but it did, and it also even killed the little guys, so that's nice. Now that we've killed him, we can go to the consecrated snowfield, which has another avatar. So let's do that one quickly. So close, and yet so far. Time to get another talisman to boost our damage a little bit more, and then let's come back. One thing which surprised me is that Golden Land is so overpowered. You will see that later on in the video, where I use it more and more. We did this boss to get the red feathered branch sword talisman, which is a mouthful, but it increases our damage by 20% once we are below 10% health. So I did give myself below 10% health without using a script, so sorry for that. After Mohg, I thought we could go to the DLC, but we're missing a boss, which is Radahn. In the DLC, of course, we grab every Scadu fragment we can find to make it ourselves as easily as possible. Also in the DLC is the Fergus Discus talisman, which is a talisman which gives you 20% reduced damage taken once you are overloaded. So from this point onward, you'll probably see me move very slowly in boss arenas. We are very close to Malenia, so let's just get Loretta out of the way and do Malenia. I figured out that the build that I have doesn't work very well. I thought I could outdamage her, but she heals with every attack and we are quite stationary, so she can hit us a lot. So we're doing this guy to get the Ash of War Giant Hunt, and you'll see why in a minute. I think this doesn't need any explanation, but I'm going to explain it anyway, because I can't help myself. Giant Hunt throws her up in the air, then when she recovers we do a heavy attack and a normal attack, and this will stance break her. And once she stands broken we can riposte her. And this works very well in phase 1. So I'm just waiting for an opening to go in and do the same thing again. I tried this more than 10 times, maybe even more than 20 times. And I got through phase 1 consistently, but in phase 2 she always broke out. I think if you try this 100 times it might work a few times. But let's see if we can find a different tactic. So I was looking for a better way to do this, and I found a YouTube video by BD Brian, and to do his method we need a few more items. Alright, so dodge the opening attack of phase 2, then drink the physic, which has the stone bar cracked here in it, which only lasts for 30 seconds and does extra stance damage, and then just use Ordovis's Vortex and win. So you can see the stance breaking buff run out just at the last attack. So the last attack would not have stance broken her. Okay, so a summary of the last few fights. I fought Briar for his weapon, which I didn't end up using. The Clean Rod Knight for some extra runes talisman. The Godfrey for Godfrey's icon, which boosts the Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike, which I don't have at the moment. Astel for the Comet spell, which I don't think I used. And then the Pumpkin Head and the Misbegotten plus Crucible Duo for a questline to get the Azure Helmet, which I have now equipped. I forgot to bring some mana flasks. That would have been handy right about now. What other boss can I do while still in magic spec? I know, Metyr. He is high resistant against magic damage though, but he's not immune. I might have a pretty good tank spec, but once the Godskin Noble pulls this bullshit, I'll die. The perfect example of how I thought this entire run would go. What a tank. So this was just a test. That's why I still have the Grafted Blade Greatsword in my offhand. But the test was so successful that I didn't have to try it in a better way. I see other people do a similar run, not with scripts but with a tank build, and they use Iron Char Aromatic for every boss, but that's not possible, unless you use Cheat Engine or farm for thousands of hours, because you need a lot of living char shards, and they drop only once from big jars, and else you'll have to farm them, and sometimes they drop. But it has a very low drop chance. That's why I try to use it as little as possible, and Messmer is a boss where it was definitely needed. Another thing that makes Golden Land so overpowered is because of the weapon I'm using. For every hit I get healed 1%, but Golden Land shoots, I don't know, 10 projectiles, and if they all hit, I'm healed for 10%, which is kind of a lot. In this stage of the game there are a few buffs which reduce the damage taken by a damage type by about 60%. One of those is the Lord's Divine Fortification, which reduces holy damage taken. So that's why I don't take a lot of damage here.
That he wishes for his death, and I must attend to the count's concerns.
This is one of the most hated fights in the game. Here I show you how easy it can be.
I'm sorry. This weakness as a compatriot. He stood before.
What also makes it easy is if you can do all the quests so that you only have Leda and Dryleaf Dane to worry about. Another example why Golden Land is so overpowered. Okay, this boss is very weak against Holy, and also I'm probably a bit over leveled for him, but still. I need this early game guy for the Barricade Shield Ash of War, which we are going to see what it does in the next fight. For Radahn, we're using the Fingerprint Shield, fully upgraded, which reduces all physical attacks by 100% and holy by a lot. And on it is the Ash of War Barricade Shield to reduce the stamina cost for blocking even more. For our weapon we have the Unspur Rapier which has rot on it, and we've got a cold infusion on it. So we stop blocking on purpose for a few seconds after blocking and poking to regen our stamina. We do get hit sometimes in that window, but sometimes we get lucky.
Promise you a 1,000-year voyage guided by compassion.
If Radahn grabs us twice, we are donezo. There is an item in the game to remove the debuff after he grabs you once, and we definitely need it. So, time for a little detour. So, Unseen Form and Assassin's Gambit both last for 30 seconds, and we can't do one of the two, because if we enter the boss arena, Bayle will see us immediately, so we definitely need both. This was my favorite kill. It's all one big script, so it was very consistent to try again and improve on it. It makes it extra satisfying that this is such a shit boss. It's the Scadutree Avatar, but it doesn't drop a Scadutree fragment. What a ripoff. Also, it's a fucking tree. It's not an interesting boss. So I thought I needed a little bit more damage for Radahn. So this is for a talisman which procs once a target is poisoned or rotted and does extra damage for a few seconds. I didn't end up using it, I think. Here you can quickly see the build that I've put together for this fight. Also notice that I've got Malenia's Great Rune for some extra healing while I hit the boss. Notice that the script in phase 1 doesn't include any healing flasks. This is because I need them all for phase 2. I don't know what happened with that hug, but I'll take it. In phase 2, notice that the script says use item. I've tried making this so that the script uses all the items that are needed, but he would use the item which removes the hug debuff when there was no hug debuff, and he would heal when he's full health, and he's just going to use an item, and I will select manually which item I think is best in this situation. So it's not completely scripted fight, but good enough.
I promise you, 1,000-year voyage guided by compassion.
As you can see, I needed all of my healing flasks for phase 2. Here I use Physic, which reduces the mana and stamina cost for a few seconds. All of Midra's attack animations get cancelled, first because of the frost, then the bleed, then the stance break, and then his death. This fight went exactly as planned. Build up the stagger in phase 1 and finish it off in phase 2.
Shall take the throne.
Please man, just let me drink a mana potion so I can use Endure again. Come on man, just let me heal to full so I can start the script. I needed to stay close, and if I'm overloaded with a lot of defensive gear, then I can't run at him and stay close. So that's why I don't have body armor. I always thought Rykard needed to be at a certain health level before he's starting to cast his 1000 skull blast or whatever that attack is called. So here I'm just trying to survive and waiting for him to do that spell cast, and when he does it I will start my script. You can hear when he's going to cast it because the music changes. I'm cheating a little bit because I need to avoid those fire pillars which can spawn under me, so I am moving a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. I hope you forgive me. this is almost art. I call this one Deer Cut in Headlights. Most of this run I went for defense, but for the Elden Beast I went for full damage. I tried doing this fight a lot of times and I thought this is good enough, but in hindsight I regret that I killed the Elden Beast like this. What I would have done different is not only spec in strength but also in dex, and then infuse my weapons with something else than heavy, for instance quality or occult, whatever is best. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time. Huggy kissy.